It's Ethan from Zimmer Labs, and I am here with a video on the Phoenix Props Ben Solo hilt. This hilt is called the Light. I like to call it the Ben Solo because I don't know what the light means, but this is for David. I've also got one coming for Paul, but the first one here is for David. What I'd like to do real quick is to take you through what it looks like brand spanking new out of the box, and then I will show you what we did here so you guys can kind of compare and contrast the different finishes and the different options. If you guys have seen, or if you have a Phoenix Props crossguard, and you were expecting this to be just kind of a rehash of that, I was surprised to find that this is really its own hilt. It is not a rehash of the crossguard in any way. It's really different. It's built completely differently. It looks completely different. Not leaving aside the whole top section not having 3 blades, and the color and the finish and everything else, but this guy looks completely different in all the ways too. It works different, it's assembled different, it's built different, and it was a surprise, let's put it that way. So this is straight out of the box. This is what you get. No paint applications whatsoever, just a matte silver aluminum finish. And the only thing I don't like about this hilt is the finish. Other than that, I love this hilt. And I didn't like the idea of this hilt at all to begin with. I thought it was a silly thing to do, a silly thing to make and release, because this lightsaber has seen all of, what, 2.5 to 3.5 seconds of action in a movie. I mean, generally speaking, we don't even really know what this lightsaber is supposed to look like, except for that 2.5 seconds that some really dedicated people spent a lot of time zooming in on, pausing, freeze framing, so that they could create this from those 2 seconds. But the more I play with this, the more I look at it, the more I've built it, the more I like this hilt. Also, I think it's the 3rd Phoenix Props hilt that they've done. But these guys do a good job. They really do pay attention to detail. They're careful and clever in how they design it, and they design it intelligently, cleverly, so that the installation is easy, is creative, it has a lot of options. Certainly for a 1st or 2nd or 3rd hilt, very impressive what these guys are doing. Certainly they put some time and effort into thinking it through before they create a product and put it up for sale. Like, for example, the PP V2, the crossguard, had a built-in activation switch right here, and then a spot for the auxiliary button here. And just the fact that they thought forward ahead enough to kind of give builders like myself switch locations and even a semi-functional switch it's a nice touch that you don't see from every hilt manufacturer. This guy, same thing, except the buttons are now here and here, different locations. This is just a dummy button and there's nothing over here. But the fact that they think it through, design it through, and make it so that the switches are included, you know, the design at least is included, and when you build it or install it, it works. Their design works as planned, and they work well. So definitely another real positive thing. Like I said, I don't love the finish. It looks kind of like they were in a hurry to get these out the door, or they just didn't really know what the heck to do with the finish. So they kind of, rather than deciding on one finish and saying, yeah, let's just go with it, they just didn't decide on any finish. That's kind of how this looks. I mean, I personally would not have shipped these to customers like this, because it's It's literally like halfway between a matte finish and not a finish. That being said, that's what you pay people like me to fix. So here is the first of my finished Ben Solos, and what I did on this one was some acid etching, acid weathering, and some polishing. I didn't want to over polish this guy because David didn't want it to be too shiny, but I think the idea that I was going for was used. You know, it's got some gunk and grime in the crevices and the little lines here, and then the parts where you'd be touching it if you used it every day, all day, destroying bad people, chopping heads off, arms, hands, legs, killing rancors. Those parts would be smoothed out from, you know, from use. So anywhere like this little round greeble up here is nice and smoothed out and shiny with some black gunk in the cracks. And then each of these little slots bump out, so they're nice and smoothed out on the edges. And then the hilt itself, right where you'd grab it, is nice and smooth and shiny around the middle here. But other sections where you wouldn't grab it a whole lot, like up here, is less polished up. But sections that jut out, like here, here, I did smooth those out. And then, of course, where these little wings or fins poke out, those are also very nicely smooth and shiny. But the inner sections here where, you know, you wouldn't really touch it, they wouldn't get bumped or brushed with a hand or a pant or something like that, not so smooth, not so shiny, and, you know, some gunk, some, I don't know, galactic decay, some resin from whatever sort of fusion reaction is going on inside this puppy. Maybe Ben forgot to change the oil on this thing once or twice and burned some smoke, and a little something came out of this radiator down here and kind of gunked up this section. The belt clip, of course, sees a lot of use, so that is nice and shiny. And this is a nice belt clip. It's solid brass, so you can polish it up, but it gets a really nice shine to it, nice finish, and it is functional. Just push this little prong here, and that's how it works, and it clips right in. And then to release it, you would push that and it would slide back out. And then in here, in and around the emitter, if you guys look in here, you'll see that there's some caked on gunk in there too, kind of as a result of all the heat blowing out of the top when the blade is lit. You know, that would heat this section up and kind of leave some residue and some burns in here. This top portion is painted. I didn't paint this. This was painted, I think, by Art Effects. David, I think, paid a little extra to get his hilt painted before it came in the mail to him. So this one here is Paul's. As you can see, no paint apps, no finishing of any kind, just bone stock OEM look. But David's did have a little bit of paint. So I wanted to just kind of leave that alone. I didn't want to mess with it or change it or scratch it off, sand it off. But unfortunately, as you can see, there are a bunch of little nicks and imperfections in the paint job. And I'm wondering if that's because it's hard to paint something that has a finish like this. Paint isn't going to stick to something like this really well, because it's not properly prepped for painting. So presuming that whoever painted this just painted it as it was, I mean, if you look closely, you could see that it's not smoothed or primed or anything underneath the paint. It's just painted. And when you just paint something, well, it'll look okay, but it's not going to be as resilient of a finish. It's not going to last as perfectly as you'd hope it would, as compared to if you put the time in to prep, clean, prime, sand, get the surface ready for paint, then paint correctly, then maybe clear coat. But hey, we're not here to critique paint, we're just here to play with lightsabers. So with that said, here is the before, here's the after, and let's kind of dive in, show you guys what's going on. To begin with, to turn it on, you unscrew the pommel. Inside the pommel you will find this really kind of cool looking section. It looks like some sort of sealed hermetic futuristic power core type thing going on, and it's actually a really cool look to it. It's got a kill key which you can simply pull out, and that reveals your charging port, or since it's a twist style kill key, you can simply twist it until it's loose and then it's on, but it's still in there, so you won't have to worry about losing it. Then simply screw the pommel back on, and she's on. Kill key's locked in place, and you don't have to worry about anything. Like I said, buttons are here, so here's your power. Auxiliary button is the top one. Sorry, I muted it. If you double tap the activation button, it goes into mute mode. See? Which is a nice function, but when you're doing a demo video, it's not real helpful.